Heyo, I'm Christy Rocha, podcast host and content creator, and I am thrilled to welcome you to the Inner Edit. This podcast is all about us, the creators, the storytellers, the visionaries, navigating the ever-changing online world. We are in this together, facing challenges unique to our craft, like burnout, setting boundaries, dealing with negativity, and that oh-so-familiar imposter syndrome. Join me as I chat with fellow creators, therapists, and coaches to explore collaborations, making connections, diving into creating conscious content, figuring out how to maximize our content output, and discovering that mindset magic that keeps us going. Whether you're a content creator seeking resources or just curious about the behind-the-scenes world of digital creators, the Inner Edit is your resource for personal and professional growth in the digital world. We're all going through the same things, so let's talk about it. Hit that subscribe button and welcome to the Inner Edit. All right, hello, welcome to the show. Today I've got Jessica Smith, owner of The Fit Life with Jessica. Jessica is an accountability and health coach who helps career women create exercise, meal planning, and mindset habits to help them with their energy and confidence. She also helps women with their accountability. Yeah, it's a thing. It can be a challenge to be accountable to ourselves, stay motivated, and most importantly, it's about keeping those promises to ourselves, right? Jessica struggled with this as well, but she has finally learned to settle into a routine of healthy habits that she's proud of. She has a plan that she sticks to and says it truly feels like a normal way of life. I don't know about you, but I definitely want to know how. We'll get into all of that today, including how, as those of us who are content creators, solopreneurs, and just people that work from home and on our own schedule and we're our own bosses, can stay motivated and disciplined and in it. Yes. Okay, let's get into it. Here's Jess. Hey, Jessica. So nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Yes, so good to meet you too, Christy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start by getting to know you a little bit. I know that you're a mom of two, you're a coach. Why don't you share a little bit about why you got into coaching women?
Yes. So it's funny. I used to be in like a very corporate world. I sold advertising in the digital and print space, like back when magazines were really, really big. So I had this major pivot in 2020, which isn't that when all of us had like a crazy, like the whole world pivoted in 2020.
Yeah.
And I left my corporate job and I never, ever thought I really would be, an entrepreneur. I knew there was always something more. And I had been going through this really pretty transformative, like personal growth journey, and knew that that was my time. I knew that was the universe. Like, it wasn't even a nudge. It was like a total like shove off the ledge. Like, this is your time to do your thing. And I've always been really, really into health and wellness, health and fitness, like the way I grew up, the way that my parents modeled health and fitness for me. And it seemed like a really natural transition because I, really, really loved helping people. I thought I wanted to be a teacher back in the day. So the natural progression of like, I am so passionate about helping myself feel good in my own body. Let me help other moms and other women feel good in their own body, like physically and mentally.
Okay. Funny you mentioned like the, not so much a nudge, but a push off the edge. Like going back, like what was the catalyst for that personal growth journey?
That's okay. Such a good question. Let me think back to what it actually was. So there was, I think it was maybe 2017, 2018. So right after my second child was born,
Okay.
I started reading a couple of like nonfiction books. I was always, interested in learning, but like had never really read self-help books or whatever. And there was this one book that was recommended to me by a client. I'll never forget this. And she's like, "Hey, have you read this book? It's called Girl Wash Your Face." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, she's like, you've got to read this book. And I bought it I bought it on Audible. And I was actually driving down to Savannah to go visit this client and many others for like a work trip. And I was like, this would be the perfect time for me to like binge this book on Audible. And it just hit me in all the right places. It was like about these lies that we as women tell ourselves and these limiting beliefs that we have. And there were just so many things that just really hit me in the gut. the way Rachel Hollis was writing, Girl Wash Your Face. And the book kind of exploded back then,
Right.
2017, 2018. And that was like my gateway drug to personal growth and personal development. I went to a couple of in-person conferences, and then I started binging podcasts. And it was almost like I just couldn't get enough of learning more about myself and how to better me, kind of from the inside out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I ask because I find that there is usually something, right? Like we don't just wake up one day usually and go, let me go on a personal growth journey. Right. For me it was motherhood, just being like totally I was gonna say unprepared, but it just wasn't what I expected it to be. And it made me like, it called into question like everything I knew about myself. And I was like, anyway.
It shocks you to the core. Like motherhood, like will like shake you to your core.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Okay. So, and then, just because you mentioned it now, and it was also a question in your media kit that just is the therapy lover in me saw this and had to ask you how your childhood and the way you grew up influenced how you feel about health and fitness. What was it about your childhood that influenced you in some way?
That's such a good question. And it's funny because it's twofold. Like there's two sides to the coin with this. On one side, I saw parents who modeled working out almost all the time, and not to like an unhealthy degree. I didn't have like an almond mom. If y'all are familiar what an almond mom is, like I wouldn't classify her as that, but like my dad was a big runner. So I remember him always running or cycling. Like he had the little baby basket on the back of the cycle, back in the 80s. And we had in our basement, like all of the 1990 equipment, like a total gym and a Nordic track. And like, he let me get down there and work out with him and like play. And like, I just remember seeing that modeled as a young age. But also I remember seeing on the flip side, a not great relationship that my mom had with her own body and food and working out. And while I did see her workout, I also kind of think I inherited some of her insecurities, some of her anxieties around her body, and this sometimes toxic pressure to look perfect, be perfect, act perfect. And a lot of that came out in the way we ate or the way we moved our bodies or the way we dressed. So it's interesting because I saw both sides of the coin. So now as a mom and as a health coach, I really try and balance those two and like really come at it from a feel good standpoint versus that I want to be a size 2, because let's be honest, I'll never be a size 2.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think a lot of us have struggled with that, and it was just a product of the times, right? Like, even I've had a lot of conversations where getting into even the 2000s of, the stick skinny actresses who have many of which have come out and been like, yeah, I was sick. Like I wasn't in a good spot. And meanwhile, those are the posters that we had on our lockers and behind our bedroom doors. And I do think that, that definitely plays a role for me in what I do now. I mean, certainly just as a concept, right? Like body image and mental health. Sure, they go together. And I've talked a lot about this on the show, but also now being a person who wants to put herself out there and be a creator and be a public figure and be on camera and be on stages and have photo shoots. Like, it's not so easy.
right? Like brings out all these new things that maybe you thought you'd work through, or like all these things that we suppress, like way below the surface.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy, this is fun.
Yeah. And like, I typically find that for the most part, people are seeing me from like basically the bra up, right? But like, as soon as I have to step out and maybe film real content or TikTok content, it's like, oh, okay, not as comfortable in my skin here. And at times it's even, I mean, right now I just haven't done it because I avoid it. I avoid the crap out of it.
I feel you on that. There's something about, I don't know if it's just being a content creator or, me, I can feel that, and like being in the health and wellness space. Like I feel this probably self-induced pressure that I should, hate that word, by the way,
Yeah, I
should,
know.
that I should look a certain way, or I should be eating a certain way. And it's like, yeah, my life is, pretty healthy about 85% of the time, but I'm also a human and I really love wine and I really love ice cream. And
Yeah,
I try and find a balance between the two. Right. So it's this like weird pressure of, all right, you're not a fitness model. So like, let's just get that out of the way and
right.
let's just forget about that. And can I, show like who I really am on Instagram and show when I'm having a glass of wine and that's okay. And maybe somehow, get to body neutrality. Like if I can't get to body positivity, can I at least find some cozy area in body neutrality?
Yes, I do. And I think I think that is possible. I hate personally that it just for me is like taking such a long time. Like
Mm,
I hear you and I go, yeah, let's get to neutrality. And like, this is something I've been talking about for now 2 years. Right. And like, I can look back on where I was and go, wow, like we've really made progress. But I still have those moments where I'm like in a dressing room at the mall and it's like, which
mm,
just as like a little rant, I aired an episode today that I mentioned this. Like, women's sizing is so messed up in clothing. Like, I am so irritated that it's like I would walk into one store. I went to the mall recently and I haven't been to a mall in a really long time. So it's like all just hitting me. But like I went into one store and I'm this size. I go to another store. They don't even carry a size large enough for me. Like it is so messed up. And it just I'm mentioning it because you can be on your own path, right? You can be on your own journey of acceptance and neutrality, and then you go something as like innocent as a mall and go shopping, and some corporate bigwig in a room that decided that this is the size of in this store is now going to like make you feel like you're whatever, you know what I'm saying.
I do. I
Kind of
do.
like
It's a
trail off because
total
I'll
mind
like
F. And it was
go
probably like,
crazy.
some old man who determined that
Right,
size, right? Like it's
exactly.
not probably not a woman, a person that has like female body and
No,
curves and has birthed children. I mean, yeah, it's so much easier said than done. I feel like
yeah,
so much in the wellness space, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, like it's just so much easier said than done. We're like, yeah, like inner child work or
yeah,
yeah, body neutrality or like, yeah, I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in today, but it's just, it's day in, day out grinding. It's like, it's you make it today, you don't tomorrow. You try again the next day. It's like that, infographic that you see on Instagram where it's like what we think progress looks like, but like what
yes,
progress actually looks like is up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's,
right,
I get it. Yeah.
brutal.
It's, mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Um, all right. So something that we're definitely going to talk about is your 5 to Thrive. And I love this because you say that it is the 5 key areas to plan to maximize your energy and productivity. And I think just connecting this for me and my audience with content creators, there is such a blurred line between work and life when your work is your phone, when your work is your life. We're creating content around our life. And so the word that's coming to mind is boundaries. And I think that this 5 to Thrive will help us establish some healthy boundaries. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the 5 to Thrive and how we can start incorporating it into our lives?
Yes. Yes. I love that word boundaries. One of my favorite Peloton instructors is Robin Arzon. And I remember a line she said, she was like, boundaries are sexy, honey. And I'm like, yes, they are.
Totally.
They are. So I geek out on planning and I geek out on like really thinking ahead and doing some planning. So that's why this whole five to thrive idea came to mind. Cause what I do is I help women, whether they're business owners or career driven women, I help them create, exercise, meal planning and mindset habits that will help them, with their energy, with their confidence, because I really found that so many women, they put their needs last on the to-do list, right? And that leads to burnout, whether it's mentally or physically or both. So if we can take some initiative and take a little bit of forethought to like, let me think about the week ahead to maybe prevent some of that burnout or prevent some of that decision fatigue. So I'll kind of go through these And stop me if you want to chat about each one. But these are things that, like, if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to kind of plan these things out, or even just identify what they might be for the week ahead. And no, I'm not perfect. I'm not a robot. I don't do this every stinking weekend. Most weekends I do. And on the weekends that I do, my life is really smooth the next weekend or the next week. So the first thing that I do is a calendar sync with my husband. And I kind of just look at that week ahead. So whether it's your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your spouse, your roommate, like whoever is living in your house, your cat, maybe, I don't know, sync up your calendars with them. And it takes 2 seconds, right? Like, look at your calendar. What do you have going on this week? What do I have going on this week? All right. So-and-so has late practice this week. I have a girls' night. I have this. You're traveling on Saturday. Like, just to get on the same page. So there's not that OS moment where you're like, who's picking up Ellie today? Like,
yeah,
you don't have that. So that has been a game changer for my husband and I, to do a quick calendar sync to look at that week ahead. And oftentimes I find, I'm sure you might deal with this, like, totally forgot about that. There's a birthday party on Saturday. Don't have a gift for that yet. Right. Like, so that is definitely, before I do anything else, I do that calendar sync first. Second thing is planning a healthy menu or planning meals. And I know that sounds like a lot of work. And I don't mean spending all day in the kitchen on a Sunday. And this is something where you can really start small. And instead of planning out all of your dinners and all of your lunches and all of your breakfasts, maybe you pick one meal to start. Like, maybe if lunches are your Achilles heel, Christy, and you're like, I have Zoom meetings like all day this week, I don't have time for lunch. Maybe lunch is going to be that key planning element for you. Maybe you just start right there. But planning out what meals you're going to have, that's going to help you with decision fatigue, right? We're making so many decisions as moms, as business owners, as content creators. If I can take the decision of what's for dinner or what's for lunch off my plate, pun intended, right? Like, is that not like the question that you loathe the most? What's for dinner?
Yeah. Anytime. I don't want to care about any meal ever.
I don't meal prep them, right? Like, I just plan it out. I actually write out what I'm having for lunch, what I'm going to have for dinner a couple nights a week, plan for takeout, plan for leftovers. And I actually have, a freebie I can offer your audience, where it's a private podcast that teaches you how to plan a week of meals in under 20 minutes. So I can only share so much with you guys in this one podcast, but that is a short, quick, bingeable podcast where you can actually learn my process to plan out those meals. So that's number 2, is planning out that healthy menu. Number 3 is plan out some intentional movement. So this looks like you sitting down with your calendar and saying, okay, I have made a promise to myself to really start working out more, whether that's weightlifting, whether that's hopping on your Peloton, whether that's taking a walk for 10 minutes, like whatever that looks like for you, penciling it in when you're going to do it. Because we've all said, I'm going to try and get a workout in today. And when we say that, what happens? We don't get a workout in. We might, right? We might, but really being intentional about getting in your calendar and saying, all right, I have a window before my first meeting starts, or I have a window after I get home from work before that, whatever happens, and actually writing it out. Even though I do the same kind of cadence of workout, I still write it down in my planner, because it just gives me that sense of control and sense of, like, I know what's coming and I'm calling my shot. There's something about writing it out that's going to help me hold myself accountable so much more. So that is planning out your movement. That's number 3. Number 4 are, if you're in business, thinking about your needle movers, right? So if you own your own business, if you're a content creator, if you're a podcaster, if you're a coach, what are the top needle mover activities that you can do this coming up week? Because I feel like the to-do list gets so long, but if really my needle movers are create content, share that content, and sell, right? Like, if I can just like really narrow it down to what are some needle movers I've got to do this week, even though like updating my website, like, it's probably on my to-do list, or, making new brand colors. Like, is that a needle mover? Maybe not.
Right.
So really zeroing in on those needle movers in your business. And it can be the same thing every week, or it can be something different, depending on if you've got a launch coming up, or depending on if you're, in a season of recording with your podcasting, or whatever that might look like. But zeroing in on that and writing that out is super duper helpful for me personally. And then number 5, the last thing is maybe a little unexpected, but it's something fun and something restorative, like just for you. And sadly, I just started doing this, the something fun part. Like I have the freedom, like I have my own business. The whole point of having our own business is time freedom, and like to be able to go get a pedicure on a 2:00 on a Monday, right? Like, so I've incorporated this in my CEO day, which right now is on Mondays. And I purposely don't schedule calls that day or recordings, or I try not to at least. And this past Monday, I had lunch with my best friend. Like we went and had a 2.5 hour lunch, and it was so restorative. Like I just felt so good after I left. The week before, I got a manicure and a pedicure. Like whatever that looks like for you, going to sit at Starbucks and people watch or work on your computer. Just like something fun, restorative, relaxing that fills up your cup. That could look different for you than it is for me, but just being intentional and saying like, I'm going to do XYZ this week for myself. It just ensures that you're not getting left out and you're really taking time to prioritize, what makes you feel good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So first of all, I just made a note. Your CEO day. It sounds like you are familiar with possibly Holly Haynes. This is like, she's a huge advocate for the CEO day of just block it out. Like you need time to think and plan and just like even just sit in your office and like just think.
White space. Exactly.
White space. No, yes, that's it. That's it. Yes.
Exactly. I'm in a couple of Holly's programs right now, and I just adore her. I did her CEO week challenge. I'm in antisocial school, and then I just joined her membership recently.
That's awesome.
And I'm learning so much from her.
Yeah, no, she's incredible. And like, I think what I always find striking about her is that I'll like ask her this question, like, how do I da da da? And she's like she just comes across to me as the type of person that like she just does, right? Like she doesn't get too lost in the overthinking. She's like, well, you just do it like this. And I'm like, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, okay, just do it, Christy. Just so do simple. It. Yes, just do it. Anyway, her stuff is amazing.
I love it.
I was also going to ask you, so lunch with a friend, manicure, pedicure, like what other things are a part of that fun list? Because I really struggle with that, like finding what is fun and what is personally joyful for me at this stage of life. Like what other ideas do you have about what could be fun?
That's so true. Cause I struggle with this, and I did a theme like around joy in my own membership, and I asked them to write a joy list. I did not come up with that. Like I heard another coach talk about joy list. It might've been Rachel Hollis or maybe Holly. I can't remember, but they were like, let's think about when's the last time you wrote down like 25 things that bring you joy. And it kind of feels hard at first. Like as I got going, the list got more, and it could be big, like sitting on the beach at sunset, or it could be small, like I really love latte art. Like if you bring me a latte and it's got a little heart in it or a little leaf, like I get so much joy out of that. And I cannot do that at home because I am not creative or talented like that. So I did a joy list. Let's see. So to answer your question, what are some more things on my joy list? I'm such a like girly girl pamper person. So like go to the spa, right? Like go sit and do a facial or a massage, manis and pedis. I love like wandering around Target or Home Goods with a Starbucks in my hand, of course, like with no agenda, like no list. I'm not looking for one specific thing. I'm just letting Home Goods speak to me. When it's not a million degrees outside, we have this really pretty like nature walkway called the Greenway in Georgia where I live.
Okay.
And just going and walking on the Greenway by myself, and it's like kind of shaded and covered, and it's near like water and stuff. So that's really nice. Let's see what else is fun and joyful for me. Being with just friends that I love. I mean, like people that, whether it's a neighbor or a girlfriend, and just like chatting with them for hours over a glass of wine or coffee. I've gotten into reading for fun. These last 2 years, like 2022, I actually like picked up a fiction book for the first time in probably 10 years.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
So reading for fun has been really cool lately. So like maybe you sit at a coffee shop and read. I mean, that feels like the extent of my fun list for now. That's like attainable. Like
Okay,
that's
right.
not going to the beach, going to
Right.
Italy,
It's not like a day
going to the
trip or
lake.
right,
Yes.
right. Yes, I hear you. Yes. Yeah, I know. I feel you. I my whole bookshelf is personal growth, and at some point I was just like I burnt myself out of it. And
Yes.
I picked up a fiction book, and it was during the whole like Colleen Hoover craze, which
Yes.
I arguably I guess we're still in, but like when it first like blew up on social media and stuff. Um and then I actually had to like step away from that because I hadn't read fiction in so long that I was staying up till like 2 o'clock in the morning finishing these books. And I'm like, this isn't really doing what I, I needed to do. Like I'm loving it, but I'm exhausted.
Right.
So anyway, I have to like create some balance with that. Um, yeah, no, it's so important. And I asked because I'm like I said, I've been really like I've been really struggling with not only what to do. So thank you for those suggestions and just reminders, really, but also you know what I find really difficult is like getting there. And not
Mm.
just like the logistics of getting there of like are all of my time sensitive things done or the kids taken care of, but I actually have some a block in my mind, I think, of it's not that I know it's not that I think I won't enjoy it once I'm doing it. It's just that there are so many things for my work and my content and my podcast that I want to be doing that I never feel like I have enough time to do. So
Mm.
to step away for a manicure, I I haven't done it yet. Like I've thought about it. Every time I'm driving and I'm looking at my hands on the steering wheel, I'm going, you feel better when you have your nails done. And why don't you just go do it on a day like today or a day like Friday when you have some white space? And I don't. I just because I'm like, well, you could pitch five more guests instead of doing that. Um, and the and I guess maybe a better example, and maybe we'll articulate a little bit better what I'm trying to say is that I recently joined Orange Theory, and so that I have to schedule ahead of time, or I don't get in the class, right? So I'm scheduled to go later today, all day today. I will be like, oh, I have to get all this done before that time, before that time, before that time. And then that time will come where I have to leave. And I'm like, oh, I have to stop. I have to get up. I have to leave. And I know logically, as a human being, at the end of that class, I know I feel like a new person. I know I feel great. But it's like the whole lead up of I have to cut my time short. Like that is my mindset on it. And I'm having trouble shifting it of
Mm.
like, even though I know what's going to happen on the other side, it's still the lead up of the mindset of like, oh, I just have to stop working or I have to cut it short to do something for myself instead of, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm like, yay, I get to do something for myself. Do you know what I'm saying?
I totally do. Absolutely. It's almost like you feel like it's like FOMO in a kind of way, but FOMO with like
Yes.
productivity almost. Like if I'm
Yes.
not heads down in my computer or on my phone doing XYZ for my business, for my career, then I'm missing out. I'm not making money. I'm failing. But I heard, let me share this quote with you. I'll try not to butcher it. So, I was in a mastermind last year, and her name is Ash McDonald, and she is a therapist turned business mentor. And I freaking love her. Like
Mm-hmm.
her beliefs and her way of doing things completely like shook me. Like I had never heard of doing things this way. And one of the things she said was like one of her mantras for the week was like, the more fun I have, the more money I make.
Mm,
And this notion of like flipping your mindset, or like the better my body feels, the better my business is. Like if I feel good, my business will succeed. Like and things like where we're normally like, okay, I can't have that kind of fun because I'm not working in my business. But in fact, the more she is having those fun times or these me times or the, gym time or whatever that looks like, that is actually serving her business too. And like to just kind of maybe reframe my mind. And because I had never thought that way of like, rest is productive. A nap in
right.
the day is productive. A bath is okay. Like going to step away to get your nails done is okay. And it's so funny, or not even funny, ironic maybe, is like the times I do that is my phone pings. It's like, oh, you have a new lead.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a sale. It's like the universe is being like, Jess, you can step away. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know. And I know. I know those things, right? Like I've heard them
I know
enough.
that I know that I know.
Yes, I know. I know them. It's just I think the other thing too is like I too come from a corporate background, and I would be at my desk thinking and writing all the list of all the things that as you said, when I have my own hours in business, I'll like be able to step away, right? Like I used to frantically rush at times during like a lunch hour to get my nails done. And like I used to like daydream about when I could just leisurely walk in, or I'd frantically run to Target, in between commuting or at lunch or whatever. And like try to grab something for that weekend or something. And I would like, excuse me, fantasize about what it would be like to like do this leisurely.
Yeah.
And now like I have that opportunity. And I think part of it is that the work has shifted from someone else is telling me what to do, I'm part of a system, to actually something I enjoy. It's like that's the point, right? And it actually now makes it harder to step away. It's like I enjoy doing this now, but I still need to step away. But
Yeah.
that part is hard too. It's like I like doing it.
Totally. Oh man, absolutely. I just feel like practice. The only way we're going to get
Yeah.
better at that is practice, I feel like.
All right. So have you had a direct experience where you have taken that time, you have set aside the time and stepped away, and aside from like maybe your phone pinging and there being a sale, which like I can totally see, I totally am like, I think the universe likes to like mess with us like that. um I often think, what am I trying to ask you? I'm trying to ask you a question that I kind of already like feel like I know the answer to, and that's why I'm having trouble saying it. Trying to like ask it and leave it open, but also like lead you a little bit. Don't mind me. Um, guess what I want to ask you is, do you really see the times that you have planned ahead and step away? Is it always that you leave better, that you come back stronger, that you have a new idea, that you feel recharged? Like, are there ever times where you regret it? I guess is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's a good question. Regret? No. Like there are not times when I regret it, but I will say there have been seasons in my business where I think I leaned too far that way, maybe. And, maybe leaned too much into the feminine energy versus the masculine energy. The masculine energy being more of the doing, the tasks, the lists, the planning, the production, and the feminine being the rest, the flow, the ease, let it come to me. Right. And I thought I was like, oh, I'm stepping away, or I'm
Mm,
retreating, or I'm relaxing, or I'm resting. But it went too far. There wasn't enough doing with that.
interesting.
And that you don't always feel that instantly, but you feel that in your business about 3 to 6 months later. And you're like, it's freaking crickets over here. Or
Mm,
you're like, I'm not selling anything. Or you don't have a new product coming out. Or there's no new launches. There's no new ideas because I've been so stagnant. Because I was a little too lax, I guess is a great word to say.
mhm.
So finding that, this keeps coming up, balance and boundary between the doing and the resting, the masculine and the feminine, has been a really difficult dance for me, especially coming from corporate, especially coming from this like hustle, grind, work till you're dead. I don't care if you're on maternity leave. I don't care if you have babies at home. Like
Right.
clients expecting in my corporate world, expecting me to answer their emails at 10 o'clock at night. And it was like I was a robot, not a human. So yeah, I feel that. But now I don't ever regret coming away from that. I'm just striking a better balance of it, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I think what you're touching on is another point that I wanted us to get to, is accountability, is like the self accountability, right? Because whether we're creating content or we are a coach or a business, a solopreneur, or whatever it is, like there is no manager. there is no, person above us looking over our shoulder to hold us accountable. Like it really has to come from us. How do you start to recognize that maybe you've gone too far one way or the other? And what do you do to course correct?
I love the word accountability. It's one of my favorite words.
I saw it. I saw it on your
Because I'm an
kid.
accountability coach, right? Like, so to answer your question, like, I think that not only in our personal lives, but like in our professional world, like I need community for accountability. And I'm in a lot of groups and a lot of memberships and a lot of, I believe in investing in myself and investing in coaching. So like seeing when you're in a group, like what other people are doing, not that it's a comparison thing, but it's like, oh, wow, like you're actually doing, right?
It
Versus
inspires
this just
you,
being,
right?
it inspires you. It gives you ideas. It gives you just like kind of a pep in your step. So like that is a big thing for me, is being surrounded by other women who are driven, who are entrepreneurs, who are like in my same stage of life and space. So to kind of see that definitely can kind of put you in check. And I think you can also feel it too, when you're just like, either things are slow for you or you're feeling uninspired or you don't have any new ideas coming in. It's just like, it's almost like you just don't want to do anything in your business. I feel like that's also like a really good indicator of like, you're not doing, like, there's no strategy. There's no plan. Like what's going on? What is the thing here? So I think those two, but more so being in community with other people has really helped me stay accountable in terms of my business. And what do you do to course correct? I mean, I kind of go back to those needle movers, or I go back to, what is a simple plan that I can enact? Like, what are the things I should, or I need to be doing in my business to like move the needle, to gain more people on my email list and to share more value and put out more content? Like what needs to happen, and what do I like doing too? If I love podcasting, then let me make a whole day that's podcast recording. Let me have a schedule that works around that. So I think just kind of getting back to zeroing in on the priorities in your business and like, what's your focus? Because if we have, I was reading this morning and I saw this quote. It was like, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. So like, what are those 3 priorities in my business that I'm working on? I'm like, that was me.
I'm laughing because it's me.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
I'm the queen of like writing totally unrealistic to-do lists for the day. Like it's more of a brain dump that I'm calling a to-do list, and then I only get 2 done, and it's like, well, that's why you feel like a failure, because you've just dumped your whole brain onto a list and expected to get it done, or hoped to get it done, or rather you knew you wouldn't get it done and still put it on the list for like a 3-hour day.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a very specific question for you, random. For you have podcast. Do you do interviews, or is it mostly solo shows?
It's a mix. I would say it's probably like 60-40, just me versus guests, or 70-30, just me versus guests.
Okay. I'm curious, what do you have a day? Like, how many days in a week do you have scheduled for recording with guests? Like, if I went on your calendar, do I have 1 day to choose from, 2 days to choose from? Like, how many do you offer people?
So when I just recently redid my schedule when the kids went back to school.
Yeah.
And I have my little CEO week schedule because Holly's teaching me all the things, how to be a good little entrepreneur. And I have 1 day that's like a podcast recording day.
Okay.
However, that's not realistic when I'm, inviting somebody else on my podcast. So right. I don't have an answer for you there.
Okay. And I asked because exactly that. Like I just was thinking about all the things you're saying, and I would love to be at a point where there's just like 1 day dedicated to like basically like being at this setup with the mic and doing it. But I find the same thing where I'd say 95% interviews, and I feel like just offering people 1 day is rough, right? Because like other people do the same thing we do, right? Where they have their scheduled days, and so it's like, I just was curious how you handle that, because I did her was like, I should just like send this to Holly and be like, here, share this to the world. But I did her CEO week too. And that was one of the hiccups that I ran into of like, I would love just this one day to be for interviews. But then I was finding a lot that I was getting responses back like, I'm unavailable on this day. Can you do this day? And so I opened my schedule back up. And so
Yeah.
it's a
I
little
mean, maybe you
tricky.
consider doing like 2 days a week, open up
Yeah.
for interviews. And like my, CEO week, it's like if I can just get one block of time for, whatever that task is, if I can get an hour, hour and a half of time, I'm going to do other things in my day. But I also
But
have
that
to
one
realize
thing
that
is
like
done.
that
Yeah.
one thing is done. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I'm also having to be flexible with like, okay, now I have 2 podcasts I'm recording today on other folks' podcasts, but like yesterday was actually technically podcast day. So maybe you do 2 days. Cause when I'm interviewing with somebody else, I see like they only have 2 days a week, but they give me the chance to book out 6 months from now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you never know until you try it, but
Yeah. Yeah. I know. You know, the thing is like, I only have 3 days total right now.
mm, mm,
So it's like, it's
yeah.
tough. Anyway, that's totally down a rabbit hole. Going back to accountability, one of the things you talk about is, as you said, accountability, but also motivation, discipline. Like, how do you connect all three? How do you cultivate a little bit of some every day? Do we have to cultivate some every day? Like, what are your feelings on those three different, um, I guess feelings is really what it is. I don't know what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. What do we call those? The
I don't know.
entities, 3 different things. I don't
I'm an
know.
English major and I don't know. So that's great.
Sometimes words are hard. I think my children stole a lot of my brain cells, and words are just like
100%.
really hard these days.
Yeah.
And I don't even have babies. They're in elementary school. Oh, I love the question and the notion about like, okay, what's the difference between motivation and discipline, and how does accountability come into play?
Mm-hmm.
So many of my clients ask me, like, how do you stay motivated?
Mm.
How are you motivated to work out every day? Or how are you motivated to plan your meals and eat right? And I tell them, when I tell them, probably surprise them, I say, I don't.
Mm.
I'm not motivated to do this every day. The difference between motivation and discipline is motivation comes and goes.
Mm.
You start out something, or there's a new season of life or a new like fire in your belly, and you are just like ready to go and you are motivated and you're fired up, whether that's Orange Theory or whether that's like your new podcast you're launching, like whatever that might be for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the motivation is that shiny new object syndrome, right? And the motivation wanes, it fades naturally. So I think first accepting and understanding that like that is human and all of us experience that, and like to not demonize that, I think might help you feel better about that.
Mm.
And then 2, the flip side of that is discipline kicks in when your motivation fades. Meaning I rely and I fall back on these habits and routines that I have created for myself so that I do still get in my movement every day or almost every day, right? I'm not a rigid robot where like I will work out even when sick. Like that,
Right.
that's not what I mean, but I just mean like my habits are so ingrained in me that it's not, am I going to work out today? It's like, all right, I'm working out today. This was the plan. How's my body feeling? All right, maybe I'm like not really up to lifting weights today, but I'm still going to go on a walk during my slotted time. So
Mm-hmm.
the discipline is when that kicks in, my motivation doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And accountability is kind of like the glue that holds it all together. And some people, and it depends on your personality, it depends on your temperament. Some people really rely on accountability, and some people don't need it as much. Are you familiar with Gretchen Rubin
Mm-hmm.
and her book, The 4 Tendencies?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
It's a simple quiz you can take and tells you about the 4 different tendencies. And there's one called an obliger. And the obliger is the one that really needs that external accountability. They're the ones that love a workout class.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that love a workout buddy or a personal trainer to be like, you got to be there at this certain time, like your Orange Theory class, like you paid for me, you have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And those types of people really rely on, or if you have a deadline at work, right? If your boss is like, get this to me by 3 p.m. on Friday, like your butt's going to do it. You're going to have that done. But if it's Christy being like, all right, Christy, you have to get this done by Friday. Like, meh, maybe it gets done, maybe it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are obligers tend to need that external accountability. And that's really where my whole business was born. Accountability coaching was me being an obliger myself and knowing that like I struggled for so many years keeping promises to myself. I would say I'm going to go for a run, and then I would break that promise to myself. And like, I would never break a promise that I made to you. If I say I'm going to record this time, this day, I'm going to be there.
Right.
Or if I say I'm going to pick my kids up at school, I'm going to be there. If I'm going to meet you for wine at this night, I'm definitely going to be there. Right? like why? And asking myself, like, why am I so quick to break these promises that I make to myself? So that was really where so much of my accountability coaching business was born, helping other women through their struggle with accountability and checking in with them and helping them really create these routines and habits.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because I resonate with that. And it's funny thinking of it in the Gretchen Rubin terms versus how I've sometimes just thought of it as more of people pleasing, right? Like I won't let you down, but I'll let myself down. And I'm curious now, what was coming to mind as you're talking is have you just now, I want to say accepted, has like a little bit more negative connotation than I want it to, but have you just more kind of, I'm going to use it, accepted that this is the type of person you are and this is why you're in groups and communities and created your own, or have you found ways to work on that for yourself? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, is it like, this is who I am and that's okay. So I'm going to join all of Holly groups and I'm going to make my groups to be part of, and like, you're kind of part of it too, right? Or have you kind of like done something to change that about yourself, or better, is it a combination of both?
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's almost like, have I made peace with the fact that I'm an obliger, or am I working against it maybe to try and change it? And this answer may be different for everybody, but I've made peace with it, you know, understanding and learning that, you know, we all have a different tendency and doesn't make it good or bad. It's not black or white, good or bad. It's just like, well, that's how I am. So I feel like it's almost like a little secret weapon of knowing like, okay, I now know more about myself and I can lean into that and let me make it easier for myself in certain areas instead of like swimming up river, right? Is up the river or up the upstream, up the current, whatever
I know
it
what
is.
you meant. Yeah.
Instead of working against it, working with it. And I feel like that about a lot of things, like understanding your Enneagram, understanding your human design, like just understanding more about myself. I'm like, oh, that's why I am the way I am. Like, let me lean into that. And I know I need this external accountability. So let me work with that. And I think that it doesn't demonize it, you know, when we accept it, and it doesn't make it bad. Doesn't, you know, because when you label these feelings as good or bad, it's almost like you're telling yourself it's not okay to feel that feeling. So I think leaning into it and finding ways to support that can be useful and can be like a really loving, kind thing to do for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Curious what your Enneagram type is.
I'm 2, the helper.
2, the helper.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
I'm 3.
The achiever, right? Yes. I just had an Enneagram guru on my podcast a few weeks ago, and we just geeked out because we were both 2s, and we're like, of course you're a 2. Like,
oh my gosh, that's funny.
Of course
it is
you
interesting.
are.
Yeah, it's super interesting. But yeah, I like that. I like that, and I think I personally think I have work to do there. You know, like I think even just thinking about what I just said, like being the achiever and things like that, it directly speaks to what I was talking about earlier about like how I can't just step away, right? Like I want to step away for the manicure, but I don't.
Totally makes sense.
There's a part of that almost justifies it in the opposite way that I want to do. It's like, I totally get you're that. Just like achiever, so like that makes sense, and like just accept it. And it's like, we don't want to just, I don't know. I think it maybe now I'm hearing it as rather than making peace with who I am and not doing it, but it's like making peace with who I am and finding the tools that are going to get me to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Makes so much sense.
Yeah. Okay. And I just in the last few minutes here, we've talked a lot about how what you do and what you've learned can help us as creators and business owners. And I'm curious just for you, do you consider yourself a content creator? You have a podcast, you've got social media, like do you consider an aspect of what you do content creation?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to put yourself in just one bucket, but I do think that's a major element of what I do, content creation. Yes.
Yeah. Do you find that putting yourself out there in a public way, like, have you learned anything about yourself that you maybe wouldn't have expected to learn, or has anything surprised you about the journey, if you will?
Dang. Yeah. I've learned that whether you want to call it entrepreneurship or being a content creator or like this wild ride that we're on, like, oh my gosh, it has brought up so many like inner demons in me, like things
Mm,
where I'm like, wow, I need therapy to work on this. Like I need to join these groups that are very therapy centered. Last year, my coach was a therapist turned business mentor. So like, yes, I feel like this world, you know, goes hand in hand with personal growth and therapeutic development, really and truly. I've learned that comparison is something I still really struggle with, like
mm,
comparing my content to someone else's, my brand to someone else's, my sales to someone else's, my colors to someone else's, like
mhm,
the number of podcasts, the number of reviews, like the way I'm showing up, the way I look, like
mhm,
all of those things. Like comparisonitis is still a problem I have.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
that's a big one that's come up for me. And what else has come up? Um, Man, I feel like I'm getting better at perfectionist tendencies and like I'm getting better at saying no. Like I've definitely gotten better at being like thank you but no thank you to things.
mhm,
But comparison I definitely still struggle with. Oh, and letting my success determine my worth.
mm,
That's been a really big one
mhm.
in this entrepreneur world. Like the number of sales I make, the number of spots I sell in a program,
Yeah,
the amount of money I make in a month or a year. Like I'm still, I'm only 3 years in this journey and that's
right.
still pretty new in the business world.
Yeah,
So not letting that determine my self-worth and my mood and like all the things.
yeah, yeah.
It's been real hard.
Yeah, no, it is. Especially, I talk quite a bit about how there is no corporate handbook here, right? Like we don't have benchmarks that we're trying to hit that in the best way. We have our own benchmarks, which is like what we want, right? But sometimes we can be too hard on ourselves and set maybe benchmarks that are not realistic
Yeah,
or that just aren't where we're at right now. And there's often not a place to go to look to be like, hmm, what is realistic, right? Like we just have to like come up with it on our own, and that can be challenging in itself. Um,
totally.
have you found that what is something positive or uplifting or just like soul hugging that has come from putting yourself out there and being a person that talks openly about everything that we've talked about?
Mm. It's the DMs and the texts that I get, whether it's from a client or a non-client, where I've helped change their life. And that
Mhm.
probably sounds so cheesy, but it really is the transformations that are coming from not only clients, but even just like followers. Like they see, a workout I post of mother at the beach. They're like, dude, I just want you to know, like you posting that you went to the gym while you were on vacation, like it really inspired me to go do the same or to go push play on my workout. Like
Yeah.
any little tidbit that I hear back from somebody that I helped them just 1%, like really makes a huge difference. One of my favorite text I ever got from the client. And it just like, it almost makes you cry. It's like so soul hugging, like you said, I like that term. She sent me a picture of her and her son. They were at a pumpkin patch and she was a one-on-one client. So we had been doing a lot of like deep work around workouts and movement and nutrition and mindset and everything. And she said, this is the first picture I've been in a long time. And seeing this picture makes me want to cry because so often I wanted to hide and I didn't want to be in the pictures. And like as a mom, you can so relate to like, I don't want to be in the picture or stand in front of me or cover me up. But for her to say, this is the first picture that I can look at and like actually be happy that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like it totally, like it made my whole year.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
little glimmers like that are so affirming when you hear those things from your clients or non-clients, you know?
Yeah. I just got to chill. That's really
Mm,
cool.
yeah.
And I guess lastly, and I'm putting you on the spot here, I didn't ask you to prepare this. So, just as a, again, podcaster, creator, has there been any tangible tools that have helped or shifted the way that you create for the better? Any, and like it could be an app, it could be a
Mm.
program, it could be, anything that was like, whoa, this was a real game changer.
You mean like a business tool, like something that helps
Sure.
me, or like a, let's see. Hmm.
Yeah, business tool, creator tool, an app, a website. There's like so much talk about like, doesn't have to be this, but I'm just thinking of like there's so much talk
The,
about AI and things now, like anything that's been like,
yeah.
wow, this really helped me.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Canva, actually, because I
Yeah.
had no idea what Canva was before I was a business owner, but
Yeah.
I've learned so much in there. I actually follow and love Emily from the Creative Bodega. I learned a lot from her on Canva. So, like, just being able to create beautiful things inside there, like for my clients, for my membership, and for social media, that's been huge.
Love it. Love it. Okay.
Yes.
Jess, is there anything based on this conversation that's still kind of lingering on your heart, mind, or soul that you want to make sure to say today that I didn't think to ask you? Anything you want to leave people with?
Oh my gosh. Well, just thank you for this opportunity. I hope that, whoever is listening, like that a piece of this just touched you right when you needed it to. If you ever have any questions for me, I know we covered a lot, but there's only so much we can cover in one podcast episode. So if you want to learn more, if you have questions, you can go visit my website. It's thefitlifewithjessica.com. That's where you can get my freebies. Definitely make sure you download the How to Plan a Week of Meals in less than 20 minutes. Because if you love listening to podcasts, that's what it is. So those two ways are awesome ways to learn more from me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here. And it was so nice getting to know you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Christy. This has been awesome.
Okay, so I first had to talk about Jess's gateway drug to personal development. I thought that was so funny. Talking about how she read Girl Wash Your Face, and it was, like she said, a gateway drug to personal development, just opened up this whole new world because I think, I just can relate to it. Like there's usually one moment that's like, whoa, there's this whole new world out there. I just want to learn all about myself, and you kind of can't get enough of it. And then at some point you did hear us both say you kind of burn out and you just need a Colleen Hoover novel to just escape yourself for a minute and all of your personal inner work. But I resonated with a lot of what Jess said. And I think that the message that I want to remind you of now is that if you're in your personal development journey, if your personal development journey is now overlapping with your professional journey, the reminder is that you have to find what works for you. You have to take a little bit of what Jess says, a little bit of what this coach and that book and that podcast says, and make it your own. Jess has the 5 to Thrive technique to help us maximize our energy and productivity. These 5 things will also help us create boundaries between our work and our personal life. And it really comes down to learning about yourself and how you work and what keeps you personally motivated and what keeps you personally interested in moving the needle forward. And so take Jess's 5 to Thrive and make it work for you. If you're struggling with that, reach out to her. How do I make this work for me? reach out to her. She's going to tell you all about it. She's going to work with you. She's going to help you, because we also have to remember that we don't need to do it alone, you know? And we talked about this last week with Micaiah as well. The importance of making time for yourself and doing things that bring you joy. I love this idea that we talked about today of the joy list. I'll never forget, I was in a therapy session. It was my first therapy session. And the therapist said, okay, so it sounds like we need to work on, getting you some more time for yourself. And she goes, but I want to ask you, let's say we get you some more time for yourself. What do you like to do? What are we going to do with your time once you get it? And I had no idea. I had no idea what brings me joy anymore. So if it requires a list written down, so be it. Don't feel funny about it. Write it down. But taking time for ourselves, making sure there is a joy activity in there, and taking a look at the 5 to Thrive and saying, where can I implement some of these strategies to make my life feel a little bit easier, more productive, and keep me accountable and on track. And it's a lot easier said than done. I just want to say that. And maybe I'm really making a point of saying that because I'm sure you can hear I'm a little bit sick, and gosh, it's so hard to keep the accountability and the motivation going when life throws things at you, like sickness or your kid. My kid's home from school today, sick, and we're trying to get this done. And so anyway, I don't know. I think the point I'm trying to make is that if you have the plan, when the curveballs get thrown, it's easier to come back from them. All right. I think that's it. I think that's it. That's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you so much, Jess, for coming on. You are a light, and I love getting to know you. And thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. To learn more about me, my world, all the things going on, head over to ChristyRocha.com. Bye.